It's time for today's Face-Off on Fox Soul. Challengers Quan LX and Big Angry Adams ready to go blow by blow on those hot topics. Face-Off on Fox Soul starts right now.
Let me do that. Look.
Your antenna.
In this round, here's Quan LX.
Charles, we have watched a horrific video of some students who obviously had a conflict at the school that spilled over down the street from the school near Hazelwood High School. And you saw several young girls fighting one another. We don't know what the conflict was about, but we see one Caucasian girl getting into a fight with a black student, and she lost that fight, but then it became an act of wickedness, in my opinion, of what the other little African-American girl continued to do to the young white girl. She obviously was knocked out, looked like she was suffering a seizure when her head hit the ground. Then she was pounding it, and then she got up and she was still kicking this child. That is awful. Now the authorities are determining, because she's been arrested for assault with bodily injury, but now prosecutors in that town, in that city, in that county are considering upgrading her charges to be tried as an adult, which would make the penalties much more severe. My concern is whenever these fights take place, and they happen all the time with these school-age children, and most of the fights are with little girls. My concern is, are they prosecuting all of the kids involved in these conflicts with bodily injuries the same way that they're going to prosecute this young black girl potentially? Because in this case, the victim is white. I want to make sure that they're not using a double standard here, that they're sending a message no matter what the race of the victim is in these fights, you will be prosecuted.
Actually, you don't want to make sure, you just want to racialize it for the audience here. You got some of the facts wrong. So you have the Attorney General who was calling for this young woman to be prosecuted as an adult. The local district attorney is saying no, it should be handled in the juvenile courts, and there is some discord and disconnect there. The girl, who is Caucasian, in an overwhelmingly African-American school with a significant recent history of allegations of bias against white employees and students, she is still in critical condition. She is fighting for her life. There is a chance still that she won't make it. Her parents are saying, and the doctors are saying, that she's doing everything she can to stay alive. I absolutely think if she passes away from this young person should be certified as an adult for this brutal, violent murder. And I think we should not be having any discussion about race. We should be talking about the individual incident. The truth is that when you look at crime, white Americans are about 17 times more likely to be victimized by black Americans than a white American is to victimize a black American. White African-American women actually have a higher per capita murder rate than Asian men and white men, which is historically unprecedented. But again, racists use those real numbers, which you decry, to condemn black people generally, which is absurd. It's racism, because it's still an incredibly minority population of black America. And when you hear racist white Americans talk about black Americans because of the elevated amount of criminality, that's still a very tiny number, to condemn whole groups, that's disgusting. But of course, you are prone to condemning whole groups of white people. It's equally disgusting, right? And here, this isn't a racially charged issue. This is, we need police to investigate, was this a mutual affray, or was this bullying where there was one kid trying to defend themselves?
Well, when you watch the fight, Charles, you see the white girl swung first.
Okay, there's actually some incredible debate about that, and there's some suggestion that there was an early portion of the video that has been eliminated, right? And you love to jump and just assume things are true. That
but it doesn't justify the ending of what happened in the end to this young girl.
But we are seeing videos like this
all over the place.
And unfortunately, we're seeing a lot of videos of white students not fighting back and just getting brutally beat down, which is largely ignored by the mainstream media, but proliferates everywhere on social media, which just creates this cycle of racism.
But the elephant in the room is this.
Okay, go ahead.
When you look at these fights, these school fights, Charles, all across the country that's being videoed by other students, other children, the overwhelming majority of these fights are girls.
Okay.
And they're black girls.
I disagree.
No,
okay.
And they're black girls fighting each other. Speak to any principal at any major public school right now, high school in particular, and they will tell you majority of the fights now between the girls. I get these videos on a weekly basis, And the overwhelming majority of these fights involve girls. Charles, what we have in this country, man, is our young people who no longer fear the system. Because the government has told parents you can't discipline your kids anymore. You can't spank and whoop your kids anymore. And now I'm against child abuse, but I'm against a government that says to families and parents, you can't discipline your kids anymore. So now our kids don't get disciplined at home. They don't get it to school. They have been told to talk however they want to cops, treat cops however the hell they want to, disobey, not respect,
Well,
not
that was
comply.
you that was encouraging
No,
that.
I never did that. I always said comply. That way you live to fight another day. Charles, we have to do something with our young people who are completely out of control with these school fights. One, get rid of these cell phones on these campuses. I believe that should happen, but implement real security to protect the kids against shooters and crime. But Charles, we gotta do something with these kids fighting on these school campuses like that. Because this ain't the first case where a young child has been hurt and wounded like this. We just watched one last week. A young boy had the back of his head kicked in at the mall.
A white kid beat to death across the street from us, high school in
Exactly.
Nevada. The truth is that if schools have to be more prison-like to make sure kids are going to be safe, they should. Bullying has been a huge problem in America for years, and what we're failing to do is removing bad kids from campuses and putting them in alternative schools to protect the rule-following kids. Some of that is downstream from the Obama administration trying to get some sort of
But the
trying to get
schools are a
schools to look at
reflection
race
of the
before
community
behavior.
also, Charles.
No, but we don't. You
And what's
led
happening in the
with
community
making this
has
about
made
race.
its way into
And
the
we need to
schools.
stop making everything about race.
Charles,
Instead,
what
to
is
focus
happening
on the
in the
conduct
community
and the
has made
character.
its way into the schools.
Oh, now what's happening with y'all like to check this out? Here we go again. If it ain't one thing, it's another. They trying to turn this bitch into the Wild Wild West. If you live in Louisiana, you might want to pay attention to your new laws that's being presented. Right now, an 18-year-old can purchase a concealed hand weapon. I'm gonna say that again. An 18-year-old can purchase a concealed hand weapon at the age of 18. Now, they know out of all this shit that's going on around this country, schools, Six Flags, what is it? NFL parades, house parties, clubs that these youngsters out there, you know what I'm saying, doing, you're gonna pass bills like that. And everybody know the Louisiana prison system ain't about shit, and they try to get free labor and they work you like slaves in them. So
In this round, here's Charles Big Angry Adams.
You know, I didn't really get the math of that video. They are expanding individual liberties, and the man was saying that the expansion was designed to ensnare more black citizens to work in the horrifying prison system of Louisiana. It does sound like to me that instead, Louisiana has made a decision that if you are old enough to go to war, if you are old enough to vote, then you should be old enough and responsible enough to carry a firearm. And I don't know if I agree with that math, right? Like, I became a policeman at 21, and I think, or a police person now might be the appropriate term. I think that you should probably have to be 25, right? Because I think you would be more mature. But it's not enshrined in the Constitution, the liberty to be a police officer. It is enshrined the liberty to own a firearm. And I think that many Republicans probably supported this, and they might be shocked to realize that there'll be Louisiana, I used to live there, huge African American population, and incredibly oppressed African American population for historically. And I think you're going to see a lot of people carrying firearms that were not expected by the drafters of the bill. But I celebrate freedom, I celebrate their rights to bear arms, and I hope that this will lead to a safer Louisiana, much like access to lawful gun ownership has led to America being safer in the portions that allow it versus the cities that don't.
You know, I would say, Charles, that this law that they have passed is insane, or attempting to pass or bring it into an existence and let 18-year-olds carry guns.
It's there.
Charles, it's frightening.
Happening.
It's frightening.
Why?
Yes, young men and women can go off toward 18, but yet they're put through boot camp, and they go through extensive training in boot camp and extensive training in using firearms. And when they have those firearms, they have sergeants, lieutenants, they have squad leaders, they have captains. So you're surrounded by experienced men and women who supervise you with those weapons. To give 18-year-olds the right to carry concealed handguns openly like that with no extensive training, not even passing a psychological examination, not even passing a drug test, but you can just buy a gun like that, a concealed gun, and walk around with it? Charles, I believe that everybody who buys a gun should be required to do two things: pass a psychological examination and pass a drug test, Charles. But now we're going to give 18-year-old kids, and 18-year-olds today are not the same 18-year-olds 10 years ago, 20 years ago, Charles. These 18-year-olds today are crazy as hell. Some of them don't know they're behind from a damn hole in the ground, Charles. And we're going to get them a gun and say, now walk around society and protect yourself?
Well,
oh, no.
You get something. First of all, they're not allowed to carry it openly. They're required to carry it concealed. But it is already illegal if you're, as we see with the prosecution of the president's son, it is already illegal to purchase a firearm if you're a user of illegal narcotics. And if you're in the
18-year-olds don't know that.
And if you're in the presence of narcotics, when you have the firearm, oftentimes that makes it unlawful carrying of a weapon. It does here in Texas. So you have this paradigm where there are checks and balances, right? Should there be more? Should there be red flag laws? Should there be mandatory testing, mandatory classes? Well, there are some people that argue that would infringe on the Second Amendment, and there were some people that argue
18-year-old kids,
it makes damn sense. But what age?
We've raised children.
What's the cutoff
We've
age?
raised children.
What is the age?
I wouldn't dare advocate anything like that.
What is the age that you
I
think
believe
they should
the
be
youngest.
allowed?
I believe the youngest they should be allowed to purchase a weapon and conceal carry that weapon in any state should be at least 21.
Okay, what?
And also, I do believe this: they should still be required to take a psychological examination and pass a drug test.
So you don't believe in the Second Amendment?
I
and
do.
you don't believe that 18. So if you're old enough,
I believe
to
in the
go
right to bear
prison,
arms.
If you're old enough to go to prison for life at 18, why shouldn't you be old enough to drink a cold beer, smoke some weed? If you're old enough to go to war, why aren't you old enough to own a gun?
I
And this
broke
was
that
the
down for you.
situation. I know, but
the
I disagree.
supervision in the military
Okay, but
is
you're
night
an
and day
adult.
compared to the free
You're an
world,
adult.
Charles.
You can make a mistake and go to prison. You could take out
Charles,
$200,000 worth
Charles,
of student loan debt.
Charles, at
But you
18,
can't
you're not
own
an
a gun,
adult, Charles.
So you've got to exist in this
At
place.
18,
Let's say
you're not an adult. Legally, you're recognized by the system as an adult.
Let's say
but you and I both know 18-year-olds are not adults.
Let's say you're a good kid, just trying to go to college. You're walking, riding the bus every day in a war-torn portion of New Orleans. Right, there are some portions of New Orleans that it's not safe to exist in. Right,
Oakland too.
But yeah, Oakland.
San
is plenty
Francisco.
for it. There are plenty of kids, students of color, that are just trying to get to work at or leave work at 2 a.m. Leave their Taco Bell job where the lobby's closed.
See, those
to
are
get
good
home.
kids.
So
Those are
how
good
do you
kids.
decide?
But everybody
How
can
do
get
you
a gun under this law.
Well, not if you're a
All
felon.
18-year-olds get a gun
not
under
if
this law.
you get in trouble. Not if
Charles,
you're breaking the law.
a lot of our
we
kids
already have laws
that
so,
are creating
so do you just
problems
wanna do
don't
away-
have police records
so
at
you
18,
wanna,
Charles.
You want to do away with guns totally?
No, Charles, I'm saying this. We got to strengthen who has access to these weapons.
Okay.
We got to put put stricter guidelines in place to make sure we protect the children, the young adults, and the society.
And building the paradigm that you propose would systemically discriminate against young black Americans.
Why do you say
Period.
that?
Because they would not have access to the psychological testing and the other things.
The state makes that available to all who want to purchase a firearm.
Okay.
The state makes it available to all who want to purchase the firearm.
Do you think the Republicans in Louisiana would prioritize the list of kids in New Orleans trying to get the
If it is
psychological
a state
exam?
law, then everybody has access to it.
Okay. Is that how it's worked in America to date?
Oh, no, I've been trying to tell you that.
Okay. Well, now it's the whites that are pushed to the back of the line. You don't like to
What
hear
whites?
that.
Whites get guns all day, every day.
No, I'm talking
white
about-
folks have gun shows all day, every day. And
why-
white folks buy their
why-
kids
why-
guns at
why-
9 and 10 years
Why
old.
don't you
We're going duck hunting.
Why don't you go apply to a university and see what part of the line you do? If you don't,
We
click
talking about buying
cisgender white
guns,
people. I got you.
Charles.
But we have all kinds of discrimination in this country. But the truth is that discrimination would probably be felt most by black Americans unfairly, especially young black Americans. We have rights. We have individual rights. We have God-given rights.
Young black Americans
we have
at
enumerated
18
rights, and we
don't
have
need to be
kids
running around with
that are
concealed
being
handguns.
victimized by crime.
I don't want to see the
And
young
I
brothers in
wanna
my
see
community
black
run around with these
Americans
handguns
safe
at
from
18
crime.
years old.
You want to abolish prisons and policing. I
Nope.
want to empower
I
law-abiding
want
black
prisons
Americans
to be institutions
safe,
of real
period.
rehabilitation.
And I don't see.
They have taken out all the rehabilitation programs out of
how
prison.
You see
so
this
when they come in
as
bad, they
a
leave even
racist
worse.
effort by the state of Louisiana to put black kids in prison when it actually is
Angola in particular.
It is actually an effort to empower all Americans that are adults in the state of Louisiana
empower
to
18-year-olds
be safer.
by giving them concealed carry handgun
You
permits,
go to war,
Charles.
you can take student loan debt, you can go to prison
With
for
no-
life.
with no
Why can't you
stipulations.
protect yourself?
With no
What are you
stipulations.
talking about, no stipulations?
No guidelines.
There are stipulations about how you can use a gun, who can own a gun.
With no
They
training
already
required.
exist. We
No
don't-
training required.
We don't train anybody.
Well,
All
let me
right,
tell black folks.
are we gonna do away with the Second Amendment?
Don't you
Or
take
are we
them
gonna
guns and ride around white
are we gonna
neighborhoods.
let poor black Americans,
Brothers and sisters
in war-torn
in Louisiana,
primaries in New Orleans,
don't let them guns
protect
go to white
themselves from
neighborhoods.
crime?
There'll be
Why-
justifiable homicide by the police.
Why are you always racializing?
Because you know what's the
everything?
truth.
No, the truth is
You can take them guns
But
and
you-
kill each other in the hood,
All right.
but don't go among white folks.
TikTok ban bill just passed in the House, but that doesn't mean TikTok is banned. Yet. Here's what's gonna happen next. Now that the bill has passed through the House, it's gonna go to the Senate where it'll be discussed and then voted on. If it passes the Senate, then it'll be sent to the President to finally sign into law. Now, President Biden has said he's gonna sign the bill if it gets to his desk, even though he literally has his own TikTok account. So basically, all that stands between TikTok getting banned is the Senate vote. There are 100 senators in the Senate, 2 for each state, and all they need is a simple majority to pass the bill. So if 51 senators vote yes to banning TikTok, then TikTok has 6 months to either sell to an American buyer or it gets banned. Now,
In this round, here's Quanell X.
So, Charles, last week the United States Congress passed a law to ban TikTok if they don't sell to an American company, American buyer, within 6 months. TikTok is owned by the Chinese government. That was discovered. And TikTok in China is regulated far more restrictively than it is in America. The Chinese government does not allow elementary school children or children up to the age of 17 to even be on TikTok in China. But yet the Chinese company that owns TikTok wants every American child to have access to TikTok. And our intelligence agencies have discovered, whether it's true or not, but they have discovered, they say, where Chinese government is spying on American citizens and gaining access to intelligence information based on the TikTok users who are American citizens in this country. And so the government says they're doing this to try to stop the Chinese government from spying on American citizens. But I also believe, Charles, that many in the government don't like the power of social media, that many in the government don't like that a lot of lies have been exposed and a lot of truth has been told through social media. But I believe it's been the gift and the curse, social media.
Well, so what, do you want to see it to be banned or not? I mean, this is an argument
It needs to be regulated in America, yes. And we have to look at the owners of TikTok, like the Chinese government, who has real restrictions to keep their children protected from the dangers of social media like TikTok.
Okay, firstly, it's not the Chinese government that owns TikTok, and their CEO, I think, is based in Singapore. But there are some concerns, right? There are some concerns.
And a former intelligence officer of the Chinese government.
There are some concerns. No, he's not.
No, the CIA says he's a former intelligence officer of the Chinese government.
The concerns are, there are allegations that the AI, the algorithm, has been designed to brainwash young Americans into anti-Americanism and a number of things. But when you compare us to China, China is a communist authoritarian regime where there are no freedoms, right? We are free. We're free to consume information. We're free to do a lot of things that would never be considered. We expect parents to do their damn jobs. I know you don't, but we do as a country, right? And we should do it more. This nonsense nanny state that you're advocating for would have grave economic consequences to American businesses doing business abroad. Well, if America can force TikTok to be sold, why can't China force Apple's interests in China to be sold?
This is true.
Why can't China force any number of significant business organizations, because we have outsourced everything in this country. We don't build anything here. We build it in China, Vietnam, and Mexico. We don't manufacture anything here. We manufacture in China, Vietnam, and Mexico. We don't do hardly a damn thing in this country. So how on earth are we going to tell another country they can't own anything here?
I believe
it's
that
a horrible
because
idea, and it's the government intruding itself when instead
it's
we
because
should be
the American
expecting
government
parents to do their damn
does
job.
not want the Chinese government to influence the thinking, as you said earlier, of young American citizens in this country.
Well, maybe we should educate our kids better.
Because the government of this country believes there's an upcoming war is coming. They believe the war machine in America.
China cannot afford a war with America.
The war machine in America wants war with China.
China does not have the military might or the economics.
I disagree with you on that one.
America, and the problem is that America is not taking a hard enough line to.
Does China have nuclear weapons?
To protect? Yes, they do. But to
and
protect,
she has a stronger navy than America.
No, they don't.
Yes, they do.
They absolutely
They have more soldiers in China ready to fight and die than we have in America.
What we are not doing is taking a hard enough tack with the Chinese in the South China Sea. We are not, as a country, pushing back hard enough against the brainwashing of all these social media platforms that they have on our children. And parents aren't doing enough. But we're also not doing enough as a nation to go back to the single income, two-parent household. In fact, we're trying to tear that down at all turns, right? And we need to get back to the best thing for children. And I'm not saying it has to be the man or the woman, but we need a parent that their job is focused on raising the kids.
What do you mean when you say that you ain't got to be a man or a woman?
Well, it could be a stay-at-home dad or it could be a stay-at-home mom.
But you do support the mother, father, two-party household.
Oh, well, I support a two-parent household.
I support the mother and father, two-party household.
I know you're a homophobe. I get it.
Wait a minute.
We don't have to inject your
we didn't say
homophobia
that.
and bigotry
I
in
said
every
I support a two-party household.
Okay. Two-parent
Let
household.
that beautiful woman and handsome man raise them beautiful children.
I know, Quanell, you hate the gays, but we're talking about
I never said
TikTok.
that.
Yes, you have.
That's not who I am.
Yes, yeah. Well, no, it's hate the sin, love the sinner. But
that's
anyway,
what the Bible teaches.
I know. The Bible.
But you don't like that Bible.
The Bible and the Quran,
you don't like that Bible.
They're always very convenient.
You hate the Quran,
always
and you don't like the Bible.
For you to trot out to misdirect. But the truth is, our government doesn't need to be invading unless there's true evidence of the clandestine intelligence services of China taking information and using it to the detriment of this country. Our government doesn't need to be taking over corporations, big corporations.
I believe China may invade Taiwan before the upcoming election in America.
And if China invades Taiwan, then we should protect Taiwan with all of our energies. But we don't need.
But Biden backed away from that.
Here's the thing.
Biden said he would publicly. Then he turned around the same day and said, "No, I didn't mean that."
Wait, you mean Biden lies? Because he's been lying in Congress since the early '70s when he was a stupid little kid and got elected.
has to be better regulated.
Everything should be better regulated, in your opinion, but we should have freedom.
Because a government that hates this country and is preparing for
job
war with
regulating
America
their
owns
damn
the
kids.
app and the social media app that our children are all entertained by.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, TikTok, I find a lot of social media to be somewhat cancerous, especially to kids. I think it's absurd, though, for our government, without presenting the evidence to this country, that there is a real legitimate reason forcing a corporation owned by in another country to be sold to an American company, because I think there will be grave economic consequences to American businesses, and I think it's short-sighted and a bad idea. I do share concerns about 18-year-olds running around with concealed guns. But maybe we start enforcing the laws on the books about who could, instead of trying to strip away guns from law-abiding citizens, let's have real consequences for criminals who take criminal actions with guns or do criminal things to obtain guns. Let's put those people in prison. I don't care who or what they look like or what they do. Now, this Missouri teen, it's exactly the kind of case you certify someone as an adult on. I don't think it's racialized. I don't think it should be race at all. But when someone takes another child, a teenager, and beats them mercilessly in that way with clear intent to end their life, there needs to be real consequences. That consequence shouldn't just be a couple of years in a juvenile facility. If this lady dies, God forbid, it should be years, decades in prison, because we have to stop tolerating violence in this country being used against victims. And who suffers the most from criminal violence in this country? Black America. And law enforcement has turned their backs on them. We need safe communities.
law enforcement turned its back on black people a long time ago. In fact, law enforcement was always, from its inception, taught to protect the white community and police the black community. And in fact, when you do your research, the first police department in America was slave catchers. My concern right now in this country is that we have to do something to better protect our young people, even from themselves. Our young people, both black and white and brown, at the age of 18, many of them are rapping about taking Percocets, drinking syrup, smoking weed, getting high, partying, clubbing. Then we're going to turn right around and give them a right to carry a concealed weapon with no extensive training and no psychological evaluations whatsoever. It's a recipe for disaster. But I do believe that we must do more about teaching our children to clean up the behavior that's taking place in the public school system of America. And in our community, I'm speaking of the black community, nobody is going to change the image of our children but us. The world is being conditioned through hip hop music and social media. The world's view of young black youth has been conditioned to see us as being aggressive, violent, evil, and that we are the pariahs that's bringing down the nation. We have to change that.
That's it for the Face-Off on Fox Soul. We'll catch you next time.